From green ladies to 7-foot tall aggressive beasts to UFO sightings and mermen of the deep, this video explores more strangeness from the world of the paranormal. Encounters with reptilian beings have been reported for as long as 40, and researchers have been collecting cases, although fewer as terrifying as what happened to a schoolboy and his friends during a class trip to a park in Pennsylvania. In 2013, a person contacted the Mutual UFO Network with regards to a bizarre encounter that they had had in either 1975 or 1976. They could not recall the exact year. The incident happened at the Smith Memorial Playground and Playhouse located in East Fairmount in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It is currently being investigated by Fred Saluga of the Mutual UFO Network. Witness claims that he was in the 2nd or 3rd grade at the time and remembers boarding a school bus that took him to the East Fairmount Park. Built in the 1800s, the park boasts the world's largest wooden slide. The witness recalled how he and his fellow classmates arrived in the morning and were ready for a day of fun and sliding. Eventually they grew bored and decided to sneak away from the teachers and the crowd of kids. We scaled a fence to another section of the playground. There we came upon a swimming pool area. In this new area we could see that the pool hadn't been used in years, as there were so many leaves in the pool that its color was dark green. The witness estimated that there were 5 or 6 other students that were there with him. They began to throw rocks into the pool. Eventually they tired of that and decided to scale yet another fence that led onto a pathway. That's when things started to become strange. This new area put us out of the park. There was a pathway to our right. As we began to walk down the pathway, I heard a female voice from behind me say, "Stop, children." When the witness turned around, he was confronted by something truly bizarre in a nearby tree. He called her the Green Lady. Whatever she was, she certainly was not human. When she came out of the tree, I could see that she had scaly skin like a lizard. Her shin had a design pattern which covered her from top to bottom, as if her skin was also her clothes. She walked on 2 feet, and she had a small slit for a mouth. From there, the situation continued to get increasingly more bizarre. When she spoke to us, we could hear her in our heads. Her mouth never opened or moved. We hot-tailed it back over the fences, and I have never been back. The witness has thought about the incident for 30 years, even contacting one of his classmates who confirmed that the sighting had indeed happened. If the entire thing was merely a prank, a person in a costume looking to frighten the children, it still does not explain the telepathic communication described by the witness. The witness also tracked down an article from the Times Daily Google News archive dated October the 6th, 1959, which described an incident involving a green lady chasing school children with a knife, although the green lady described in the article did not match the bizarre entity that had appeared to the witness and his friends. A daytime sighting of a reptilian-looking entity can definitely be terrifying, but what are those things lurking in the dark of night? For 2 men in England, a night out perusing a back road would result in them coming face to face with true terror. In October 2009, 2 men, Liam and Carl, encountered something strange, possibly dangerous, during a night out. The incident occurred in Ebchester, County Durham, which was reported to the Mysterious Britain website, a website dedicated to cataloging strange paranormal phenomena in and around the United Kingdom. The two friends, Liam and Carl, had been out at a pub. They decided to leave at some point, although both were still feeling restless. So they decided to go for a little adventure in Liam's Celica GT. Liam was fine enough to drive, while Carl was a little more inebriated. After perusing the area for a bit, they turned down a road that they had never been down, but had always wanted to check out. It's 1 in the morning, so it's full beams all the way until we come to these two isolated, abandoned houses. Liam claims that Carl shouted for him to stop in front of one of the houses. Liam suddenly noticed that Carl was staring at the door of one of the abandoned houses. When he looked himself, Liam could see what had gotten his friend's attention. In the darkness, he could make out something large. Around 7 feet off the ground are two eyes, unmistakable by the way they were set. Anyway, the fear hit us like a ton of bricks traveling at 1,000 miles per hour. Liam turned the car slightly so that the beams from the car's headlights illuminated the doorway where whatever this thing was standing. The beams hit the door and this figure just shot off like nothing ever known. Its reaction was so fast, I promise you. Carl, who was quite heavily intoxicated, decided to get out of the car and approach the door, liquid courage replacing common sense. Liam angled his car in front of the door in case the thing decided to come back. At least his friend would have an easy escape. Through the door, I try to whisper to him, "Come back now." He's in for about 10 seconds, and he explodes through the doorway, dives on the bonnet, and blasts into the car. He's screaming and stuttering. "There's half an effing sheep, Liam. There's something in the field running at the house. Go!" With that, Liam put the car in reverse and tore out of the area. He spotted something coming in from the field, bearing down on them in the darkness, and didn't much care how much damage he did to his car as long as he was able to get away from it. Since then, I've researched every day. 5 months later, I take my partner down in broad daylight, and she just knew it wasn't a safe thing. She absolutely flipped, making me turn the car around before we were anywhere near the houses. The mysterious Britain website seemed to think that this was a possible werewolf encounter, although their reasoning for concluding as such was unclear. The description given by the two witnesses was quite vague. Whatever it was that Liam and Carl saw, there are two things that are clear. It was 7 feet tall, and it was aggressive. The sheep that was torn in half inside the house may have been there for any length of time and ravaged by scavengers. Granted, the fear that Liam and Carl felt in its presence is similar to what other witnesses feel in the presence of upright canines. Was this a bear, or was it something else? Possibly a dogman, or maybe a Bigfoot. Whatever it was, Liam and Carl aren't soon to forget. From a creature lingering around an abandoned house in Ebchester to strange objects in the sky over Arizona, the mysteries continued to pile up. On January 23, 2015, at around 7 o'clock, a man driving from Phoenix, Arizona to Cave Creek, Arizona on the 202 East noticed something strange in the night sky. It was actually two objects. One was long, but I focused on the smaller one because it was closer, so I kept noticing it as I drove, and it didn't move, and I couldn't make out any shape. I finally pulled over and tried to take a pic with my crappy phone, nothing but a small blur. He immediately called his girlfriend and told her about what he was seeing. Eventually he pulled back onto the freeway. He continued to watch it as he drove. It started changing into a long cylinder shape and started leaving a wide contrail. The trail got longer and it looked like it was going straight up. I could almost make out a shape, but I was going down the freeway and had to watch the road. I noticed a flashing light, and it was going out of view due to my position, so I got off at Val Vista exit and pulled over in a parking lot. At this point he realized that the object was gone. He estimated that the entire sighting lasted about 10 minutes. He eventually headed for a Walmart in Queen Creek, where he was employed. After his shift, he observed two Black Hawk helicopters moving across the sky. While returning home, he observed a third Black Hawk helicopter. He wondered if the arrival of these Black Hawk helicopters were somehow connected to the strange UFOs he had encountered earlier. It certainly wouldn't be the first time military aircraft were sighted after a UFO was observed. Strange objects in the skies over Arizona might be one thing, but what of strange creatures that might be lurking in our oceans and lakes? For some fishermen in New Brunswick, their encounter with a strange half-man, half-fish creature would leave them mystified. In his book, The Description and Natural History of the Coast of North America, Acadia, Nicholas Denny, a colonist and promoter of the fisheries and the fur trade throughout Acadia, who founded settlements at St. Pierre, now St. Peters, Nova Scotia, St. Anne, Englishtown, Nova Scotia, and Nepasic, Bathurst, New Brunswick. A noted historian, he spent much time and energy documenting the conditions of Acadia for the years from 1632 to 1670. His book, The Description and Natural History of the Coast of North America, Acadia, was translated into English from the original edition published in 1672 and edited for the Champlain Society by W.F. Gagnoc in 1908. Gagnoc also incorporated other translations of Denny's book, which featured extra stories written by Denny, not included in his original French edition. This included a 1688 Dutch edition, which featured a rather bizarre story written by Denny. In the collateral documents section of Gagnoc's book, there is an account that had been told to Denny by stunned cod fishermen that, due to the number of witnesses, he believed to be true. A possible encounter with a half-fish, half-human entity, a merman. This encounter was said to have occurred in 1656 to Captain Pierre Rollo and his crew in the waters around New Brunswick in Canada. Rollo and his men were aboard 3 ships. They were catching cod. At some point, the men had left the ships and gone to the shore with their rowboats. From the shoreline, further out to sea, they spotted a peculiar commotion that they could not explain. Whatever was causing it, they were certain it wasn't a fish. The men stared at it for some time, debating what it could be. Eventually the decision was made for some of the men to row out to their anchored ships and get a telescope which had been left behind, as to better look upon what was making the ruckus in the water. Peering through the telescope, the men were stunned by what they saw. I will quote directly from the article. They saw clearly that this fish, or to say better, this monster, which still retained the same appearance, seemed to take pleasure in the beams of the sun, for it was 2 p.m. and very clear and fine weather. It seemed to play in the gently undulating water, and looked somewhat like a human being. This caused general astonishment, and likewise great curiosity to see this strange creature nearby, and, if possible, to catch it. On the order of the captain, the men quietly boarded the rowboats and attempted to get closer to the entity. As they did, 2 other ships nearby also observed the strange entity and wanted to investigate. Men from those ships also boarded rowboats and began to make their way over to where Rollo and his men were. Rollo became frustrated as he knew that all the extra company and the noise created by them would almost certainly drive away the thing. He quietly directed the other rowers to move around the entity in a line and come in from behind. The other men followed the orders. This was done in all quietness, but it came to pass that one of the sailors, or the fishermen, throwing out overboard away from the boat, cast a rope over the head of the merman. But since he did not quickly enough draw it shut, he shot down through the loop and away under water, presenting in his lowest part, which became, of the quick movement, could not well be made out, the appearance of a great beast. At once all the boats gathered round in order to catch him in case he should come up once more, each one holding himself ready for that purpose with ropes and cords. The men waited patiently for the entity to reappear. When the entity did reemerge from the water, the men were able to get a decent enough look at it. He came to view farther out to sea, and with his hands, whereof the fingers, if indeed the things were fingers that stood in place of fingers, were firmly bound to each other with membranes just of those of the swan's feet or geese feet. He brushed out of his eyes his mossy hair, in which he also seemed to be covered over the whole body as far as it was seen above water, some places more and others less. The fishermen attempted to once again capture the entity, but noticing that they had designs on him, the merman shot underwater and never again surfaced. The fishermen and sailors were left in shock at what they had seen. Some even tried to come up with a way to capture him if he was to ever come back. Was this a tall tale told to Denny by a big talking fisherman, or was there something more to the story? It should be noted that Albert Rosales, author of the Humanoid Journals, has cataloged scores of supposedly true encounters with mer-beings and strange underwater humanoids over the years. It does seem, at least according to Albert's notes, that a strange race of half-human, half-fish entities might very well exist in our oceans. As I said, Denny himself acknowledged that, if not for the amount of witnesses present, he too would have written it off as nothing more than a tall tale.